Hello and welcome to Chatbot on Robot Republic. Today I am joined by a very special guest because we have got the amazing Susan Calloway. Hello, Susan.
Thank you, Josh. Hello, everybody.
I,
Hello. Thanks for
how are
having
you?
me.
Oh, honestly, thank you for coming on. Honestly, it's like an absolute pleasure to have you on. Honestly,
Thank you. My pleasure. Right back.
um, I'm obviously we've got a list of questions, but how are you doing? Kind of like, what's going on with you before we get cracking?
Yeah. Well, listen. Thanks for asking. I'm doing great. As I kind of share with you before we started recording today, I'm excited because I'm working on a bunch of new music for everyone this year. So I've been deciding about the production and who I'm going to work with and booking studios and all that fun stuff. So I'm really excited about getting that all organized. And I've got a bunch of, new things I'm doing online. So it keeps me pretty busy. So hopefully we'll get to share some of that in our interview today, and I'll tell everybody what I'm up to. So lots of
Absolutely.
opportunities to get involved. So
Absolutely. I mean, we've been talking for a couple of weeks planning this interview and stuff, and
yes.
there's a lot going on, and you are like really busy, and it's really exciting actually as well. And new music is just very excited for it. We'll come to that in a bit because I'm really excited to talk about that.
Exactly.
So obviously, kind of in terms of the interview and stuff, we're predominantly a gaming channel and whatnot, and people that are going to be watching this are going to be fans of Final Fantasy 14, much like myself with my lovely Dala Mood Fawley background. Not at all inspired by this interview at all. I kind of wanted to crack off kind of talking about one of the broader kind of like and most kind of amazing things linked to kind of Final Fantasy 14. That's Distant Worlds, because obviously you're the voice of a lot of the Distant Worlds tracks and stuff. So kind of when you've been, how did that start? How did you, because obviously you're pre-Distant Worlds, you are the voice of Final Fantasy 14. You've done Answers, you've done Dragon Song. How did you kind of drift into Distant Worlds? Was that a discussion with Nobuo Uematsu, or did it just kind of?
Well, actually, it's the opposite of what you're thinking. I was actually involved with Distant Worlds before I did 14.
Wow.
I knew Arnie, and Arnie was a friend of mine. I had done some work with him. In fact, we worked on a project for Barbie Rapunzel, which is this like DVD that came out for children, and I had done a few sessions for him because he does mostly orchestration, but does need a vocalist from time to time. And I had known him from that. And then he started doing the orchestration for the game. And I'm not exactly sure when he got involved, but he certainly got involved before I did, and was doing orchestration. And then what happened is he was going to be doing this audio CD of music from Final Fantasy, and they wanted someone that was more of a American pop singer to do an interpretation of the songs. And so I was basically hired to sing Memoria de la Stona, Distant Worlds, which is the first song I've ever actually sung for any of this. And that came out on Distant Worlds 1, which is the first audio CD, and fans really responded to it. And that was a song obviously Nobu had written, so he first kind of became aware of me at that time. Very soon after that is when the tour kind of launched, and no one knew when we started this tour with Distant Worlds it was going to turn into this big thing and be so popular. And I kind of started by just coming and singing some of the vocal pieces, because as you know, there's like a vocal, there's vocal numbers in all the different games. And they kind of, Distant Worlds, of course, celebrates the music from all of Final Fantasy, not just one game. So I kind of learned some of the different songs, and it kind of evolved from there. And I started doing more and more of the songs at the live concerts. Well, then Nobu himself started coming to these shows because they were, becoming very popular. We started doing meet and greets. It kind of evolved. And then as he started coming to the shows, I became friends with him. And then also, he actually, after seeing my performances, just really liked my voice. And right at that time is when Final Fantasy 14 had just been conceived, and he had been asked by Square Enix to write, the music for 14. And so they were thinking of this theme song, and he had been working on it. And he asked me at that point to sing Answers, which is kind of was my gateway song to so many of the fans who are listening today. I mean, and even though many people had heard me sing on the Distant Worlds tour, being actually on the game itself is what really opened up, a lot of my career in this area. So that was wonderful. It was a wonderful collaboration. I loved obviously working with Nobu and Arnie. I mean, we recorded at Arnie's studio, and Arnie, of course, helped with the orchestration, helped facilitate all of this. So which is amazing. And I'll always be grateful for that. He's just a wonderful, musician and human being, so I so appreciate that. And I've learned so much from both of those gentlemen. They both just are such outstanding musicians. And it made this such a just enriching experience for me, as a singer-songwriter and I've toured and done some things in the past, but nothing like singing with a live orchestra. I'd never done anything like that before. So that was definitely challenging at first, but also just an amazing experience. So that's sort of how I got involved. So it's not what you think, is a lot of people think, oh, well, Final Fantasy 14 is how she got involved in Distant Worlds. And it's actually the opposite. That's sort of what led me to 14. So so there you go. So that's the down and dirty of how I got involved.
And that is so cool. And you touched on that kind of the increasing kind of the growth of Distant Worlds as we've moved through the years and stuff. Because I grew up playing Final Fantasy 6, 7, and 8 on the Super Nintendo system and PlayStation 1, because I'm that old. And it has some of just, even now it has some of like the most iconic video game music ever. And I remember I went to go and see with my partner just before COVID happened. We actually saw you at the Royal Albert Hall.
Oh yeah,
just it was to a concert there, and I was there.
About that today.
Oh, it was just that red dress. Oh my god!
Thank you.
Oh, stunning. But I was sat there.
So sweet.
It was really funny because one of my friends who I play 14 with was also there at the same night, and we'd booked the hotels and everything else. We'd all met up. We'd gone to Distant Worlds, and then you came on and you sang answers, and the two of us were both sat next to each other, holding each other's hand. My friend and I were just weeping, just like, oh my god, we're seeing it live. But you've touched on like such an important thing, because Distant Worlds has kind of just it exploded massively.
It really did. Yes, it really did.
And that must have been, to kind of be at the forefront of that from like inception to where it is now, must just be like insane.
Oh, it was really, and again, it's Arnie's brainchild. I mean, he's the one that, he's one thing I appreciate about Arnie is that he's just such a hardworking musician. He's not just talented, but he also is very, very, his work ethic is incredible, because to really do all these arrangements and get all this together is just, there's such an extraordinary amount of work involved. And I mean, really what I do is such a small part, and who knew? And I think it was, we've said this internally so many times, like after shows and things like that, that it's been just such a positive experience. I mean, for many reasons. I mean, one is, it is such a positive experience because the fans are just so amazing around the game. I mean, you don't always find that. And these fans are just really lovely people. They're very, they just really appreciate the shows and the concerts. I mean, I get, there's always, every once in a while, some kind of negative something, but I mean, for the most part, it's so positive, and that's very unusual, I think, and in my experience in the music industry. So that's one thing that I think has made it really special. And probably because people play each other, like the games are kind of the way they're set up. I mean, people get to know each other and play each other from all over the world. So there's this sense of community around the game that is very different than a typical music fan would experience at a concert. So I think that also increases sort of this community and camaraderie that you feel, and the energy that happens at the live shows, So there's that element, and then there's also just the music's so amazing. And it's so great to see people appreciating the quality level of the composing that's done for this game, the orchestration that's done. I mean, it's excellent. I mean, it really is. It's as good as anything that you could compare it to. And to see the appreciation for orchestral music, which is so amazing, because when we look at the music industry overall, there's so much junk, that we hear that people, we have the music industry pushing at us going, oh, this is the new, and you're like, really? And there's some great stuff, mind you, some awesome stuff, but there's also just a lot of crap. And so it's really nice to see people having that kind of taste and really identifying and wanting to pay for quality music and a quality concert experience that really is like be music is not dead, that people appreciate like real instrumentation and people really playing instruments, and not have everything be programmed, and so it's been really an exciting thing to be a part of, because that's sort of my belief as an artist. I'm a very organic artist, even with my own music. So I'm really it's really just been a blessing to have this all fit like it has. It's just, I'm so grateful for it, and it's been a pleasure, from everyone I work with to, you know what I mean? It's just, it really
Yeah.
has. So.
Oh, I can imagine. And like you say, kind of there are, with the way that music is nowadays, there is some really, really good stuff out there, but there is a lot of the just generic, over processed crap
Right.
that just comes out. But, I think it's been interesting for me because I've always loved, I've loved music since I was a wee lad, and video game soundtracks and movie soundtracks and stuff have been such a big part of my life, in kind of like from a drama and performance perspective and stuff. And I think it's what you say about the music of Final Fantasy, just it's timeless and it hits so many generations, and the Distant World tours do very much are creating a real re-engagement with classical music, which is absolutely stunning.
Yes.
And I mean, I've never had the pleasure of performing with a full live orchestra, and I can just imagine that must just be the most, from a singing and performance perspective, that must be one of the most incredible experiences ever.
Oh, for sure. It is. It really is. I mean, the very first time, I will never forget the very first show I did. It was actually in Michigan, where I currently live. And it was like I forget which city it was. It was a couple hours from here. I want to say maybe Ann Arbor. I can't recall where it was. But anyway, it was a small, very small orchestra hall, but it was this live orchestra. And I just will never forget that, because it was like, it almost choked me up, because the music's just all around you, and I think that's where, if you haven't had the experience of being like even in a band, or because I've been in rock bands my whole career and stuff, and playing with like a band or whatever, it's the similar feeling, because the music's just all around you, and that's why people get so addicted to it. It's so powerful, and you just feel like the music's alive, at that moment. It's not recorded, it's like happening live around you, and it's something I can't explain. It's why people just, leave everything they, love and go on the road, because it's that addictive, that feeling. And it's so powerful. It's so powerful.
Absolutely. I mean, I know that kind of a few years back, I've been to see Distant Worlds, which was phenomenal. I also saw Hans Zimmer with his orchestra.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
With my dad about 8 or 9 years ago now. And that was just like mind blowing as well. Because it's just like, I mean, performing with a band is amazing, and watching live bands is absolutely incredible. And it's something that I think, over the last 2 years or so, we've really missed, because, going to gigs and stuff is phenomenal. And live music has such a power to just kind of bring people together. But to see orchestras playing live, when I've seen orchestras versus live bands are incredible, but there's just something about a live orchestra which is just a bit more, because like you say, it's bigger, it's grander, it's just, and it encapsulates you even as an audience member. You just sit there completely engrossed in all of the the subtleties of the music that you might not necessarily hear if you're listening to it on as through something like Spotify on a streaming service or something like that. And just amazing. Honestly, just I mean, kind of what is it like then to kind of tour with the Distant World Orchestra? And kind of, obviously you've talked about how amazing it is to work with Arnie Roth and Nobuo Uematsu. Kind of, what is it like to tour with the orchestra team and everything? Because obviously I can imagine that must be just out of this world at times.
One thing that we do, because most cities, and hopefully, I mean, that's something that's really taken a hit during the pandemic, is, and I think this is different in different countries, but in the United States, what happens is every city really has like an orchestra in residence. So the orchestra doesn't actually tour with us. Wow. So we go to each city will have and they will be sent the music in advance, and then they'll be like, Arnie will usually go a week in advance, and just they'll rehearse a lot. And then we do the show, with that orchestra. So it's the orchestra, because that would be really expensive and crazy if you had to pay for all those flights everywhere. And plus there are orchestras that are used to playing with each other in cities. And I think Europe is similar. They have there's an orchestra in Paris, and there's, a lot of them have several. In fact,
we've got 2 or 3 in London. I think we've got the Royal Philharmonic, the BBC Concert Orchestra, and all these other ones in London itself. And then plus you've got ones across the rest of the UK. Exactly.
And that's similar to what we do. So that does make it a little more feasible to be able to do this at a high level. So it's not, because if they had to pay for, I mean, it's just the travel is what starts really eating into your budget for stuff, because you want to keep that to a minimum. So the special guests and the people, and Arnie does have a crew. Obviously he has, his wife's awesome. She's actually like a road manager. I don't know if that's her official title, but she's like always taking care of everything like backstage and just making sure things are running smoothly. So she's amazing and just a sweet, sweet person. And he's got like a tech crew, which I think rotates a little bit, but like I know Chris is a friend of mine that works with him, but like, you know, it's awesome. It's a great little crew, but it's small. I mean, we all come from different places because I don't even live in Chicago where Arnie's coming from. So we really just kind of meet there in the city. And then we're given an itinerary, you know, kind of at the hotel when we get there, and we kind of know what's going on and where you need to be. And the hotel's always like right by the venue. So it's usually convenient. So it's, you know, it's a very professional, organized situation, which makes it, you know, good, because we do travel some distances. So especially when you're going to different countries, it's nice to have, you know, that things are really organized, you know, so because you don't always speak the language maybe, or there's can be other challenges, you know. So, and usually when I go someplace like Japan in particular, where I don't speak any Japanese. I'd love to learn, but it's just completely, it's such a very different, everything about it is so different than the Romantic languages, you know. So they always have like a handler or someone there that's sort of like my person that speaks English fluently, that I can kind of like, hey, I don't understand. Where am I? You know, I can call and they kind of babysit me and make sure I get to things where I need to be. Like I'm gotten a lot better about that. But it's, you know, at first it's hard because you can't really read signs to say, well, is this the right thing? Or like you can't really communicate with the cab drivers because none of them speak English. So it becomes like a little bit of a problem if you don't have someone there. I can say, hey, you know, take me to this location.
Yeah.
You know?
Can you get me here, please? And then the cab driver looks at you like, I don't speak English. And you're like, oh, I'm stuck.
Yeah, the only place in Europe I ever had a problem that they were actually speaking English, but I couldn't understand them very well, was in Scotland.
That would be the accent, yeah.
It's just like the ends of the words just fall out and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like I remember so many times I'm like, I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah.
And it was just like Edinburgh. We did a show there. It was like Edinburgh.
Yeah.
It was awesome. I mean, it's a charming accent, but wow, I really struggled. My ear was like, I can't.
I've got a couple of friends that are Scottish, and at times I have to really focus what they're saying because I'm like,
right. I know.
What?
I know it's English, so you don't want to say like, well, I don't speak Scottish, but it's like
it's just like, could you just it's the speed as well. I found as well, some of my friends speak very quickly, and I'm like, just slow it down a little bit, because I got about half of that.
Sure. Yeah. French is like that, because I actually speak a little bit of French, but they speak so fast that even though I do understand a little, I'm like, you have to do that, like, you know, kindergarten level speaking French.
Talk to me like I'm about 5.
Exactly. And I can do it, and I can understand.
Oh,
that's awesome.
That's incredible, honestly. So kind of from your perspective, what have kind of been some of like, and you know, this can kind of be just like venues or cities or specific tours, of what have been some of like the big highlights of kind of distant wild tours and stuff?
Well, I would say, I mean, playing the Royal Albert Hall was just amazing. So that was definitely high on my list, because it's a legendary venue. You know, it's one of those venues that you hope and pray at some point in your career, you'll get to the point where you could be there, you know, and certainly my ultimate goal would be to be there, performing my own music, you know, and stuff would be a huge thrill. But it was just awesome to be there with Distant Worlds, and what a just gorgeous venue, and just to think of the people that have been on that stage, that's definitely
stunning.
Just amazing experience. And I think, you know, the other one for me has been the Tokyo International Forum. That was pretty cool too, because it's such a big venue in Tokyo. And the thing that's special about performing in Japan to me is that this is where the game is from, and their celebration and just appreciation of Final Fantasy there is just off the charts. I mean, it is really, really big there. I mean, it's like Disney to like United States, you know, like where we think like Disney, it's like this huge thing. Like that's kind of what Final Fantasy is to them. And so being there and like the crowd and watching their, you know, their response, and Japanese people traditionally aren't super emotional. So they, you don't always hear it like you will in like Paris, for example, where they're banging on the seats and they're going crazy, that's also a really cool experience. But when I was really realizing how much they loved it was at our meet and greet after the shows in Tokyo. And just the fans are so emotional about it. Like they were just loud, and they were just in tears like trying to express how much the game had meant to them and answers meant to them, and and my voice and how much it meant, it had this strong emotional connection. It was very moving to me. And it made me realize, like, it just reminds you how powerful music is, and that it's this thing that can just connect all of us in a way that, words can't describe. I mean, it really is something that touches the soul, and no matter what language or where you live, and here I am all the way around the world, and have these people that are expressing, this great emotion with what they feel towards the game and this song. And it really touched me. And I felt really humbled by that. And it's why I've started all these new platforms and things online, because I just want to create community around my music, around my involvement with Final Fantasy, and opportunities for fans to even get to know me better, and just, to be a part of, my music journey, because it's not over. I'm just getting started. So, but anyway, but that's sort of how, I know I kind of segued into probably another question you're going to ask me, but that's sort of why. So that's sort of, but those are some high points. Paris is amazing too, as I kind of touched on, because Paris is so, they're just so crazy. And they're so expressive, like they, again, that, after the shows, like at the end of the shows, they were like literally banging on the seats, and like, it was really funny. It was like a rock concert, to them, which is pretty cool. So
I went to a Depeche Mode concert in Paris a number of years ago, and it just blew my mind how completely like it was absolutely insane. Just the reaction from the kind of French fans and stuff. I was like, oh, this is just. I thought we were good at gigs in Britain, but then I went to Paris and I was like, we got nothing on these guys.
I know it. And it's funny, you always know where you stand in France, it's absolutely. Like, that's kind of a thing. It's like, they'll let you know. So they're not shy about their opinion. So it's great. So if you can, like, no, I really enjoyed it. I love Europe. It's just, what a rich culture, and all the countries are different. They, they have similarities, but then they're all unique, and they all have different parts of history and different artistic, inspirations and architecture. And it's just been an incredible experience.
Absolutely. I mean, thinking about kind of experience and stuff, have you got any kind of, like, I say amusing very broadly, kind of like any kind of anecdotes from the Distant World tours that have kind of like stood out to you as, like, obviously you've talked about the kind of feeling very humbled and stuff by the Japanese fans playing in Tokyo and stuff, which could have been amazing. But are there any kind of like other interesting or kind of like vaguely amusing anecdotes from the Distant World tours that you kind of sit there and go, that's going to kind of just like stay up here rent free for the rest of my life?
Right. Well, I mean, there's lots of funny things that happen when you're touring. I think I'll tell you something. I haven't remembered this until recently. We had an experience once, and I think it actually was in Scotland, where we were staying, that we were right by these train tracks that were sort of running through the city, and they were doing all this construction on them, and they were doing the construction like nonstop, like around the clock. I don't know if they were on some kind of deadline or something, but we came back to the hotel, and we had done the rehearsal, and we were, had to, get a night's rest, and then the next day was the show. Well, they were just up all night working on these trains, and it was so loud, and it kept us all up. And I will never forget. And here we've got this big show, and that's like the worst thing for a singer. Okay, like you really need your sleep. It affects your voice, because it's just, your voice sounds tired, and it's harder. And this music is not easy to sing, so it's like I really have to stay on that stuff. I've got to drink a lot of water and just take care of myself. Anyway, so I got up the next morning, and I went down into the breakfast area. It had this small, because that's where we always see each other, when we're doing all this touring together, we'll always see each other at breakfast before we start our busy day, So I went down there and I saw Arnie and Marcy, and Arnie had the funniest look, because I could tell it was the same thing. We were all thinking the same thing, because he's exhausted. He hasn't, gotten a very good night's rest. And I just looked at him like, Arnie, what is going on? Why is it so loud? And he just had the funniest look on his face. And we can laugh about it now, but we were just like, this is just, how did we get in this hotel? It's why that's right, because usually promoters will investigate that. They always, they'll find out if there's construction, or they'll ask to say, is there any construction going on? Because we won't pick that place then. We'll be like, no, pick someplace that's quiet, because, you can't control that.
Absolutely.
And then when especially you're jet lagged and you're coming in from, you had a 10-hour flight or something. So anyway, but that was like kind of funny. Like it was like funny, not funny,
It's one of those, it's funny now.
Yeah, it's funny now.
It's funny now, but back then. So I mean, there's been lots of funny. I remember one time, another funny thing happened once. I
I'm pretty good about remembering words, but I did have an occasion where I was singing Sutaki Dane, and who, you know, a lot of times Riki will perform that because she's obviously the original singer, but sometimes, you know, you can't have a bunch of singers come in, and so I try to cover all the other materials, you know, just to kind of keep the show cool, you know, and everything. But she couldn't be there, and so I was singing the song, and I just blanked on the first couple words. And it's funny because the words are kind of ethereal because they're translated from Japanese, because I don't sing them in Japanese, I sing it in English, except for the Sutaki Dene, the chorus, you know, I sing that in, I sing that line. But anyway, I was singing it, and I had been in a conversation with someone right before I went on, which is a huge mistake. And I know that from my performance experience. So it's like my own fault. And I wasn't concentrating. And then I went out there and I was like, and I just remember I kind of cobbled something together, and Arnie just looked at me and he kind of like cued me. He like gave me the word, because he's really good about that too. He's like, you know, he just, you know, because there's times your mind's a funny thing. And sometimes even though you practice it, you can just be in a headspace where just, I don't know, like you're tired and you're just, you know, you just blank for a second. And even though you've done it a million times, that doesn't happen very much though. I'm very consistent, which is, I'm grateful for that it's never been sort of one of my issues. But wow, that was like frightening. And that's another thing, at the time, you're just like, oh my goodness, I'm like panicking with all these people. And I'm like, I'm forgetting, what am I saying? But anyway, it was saved, and I got back on track, and I was able to finish this song.
I completely get that. I had a moment when I was at university. I was playing Sweeney Todd as an understudy.
Oh, funny.
And I went on stage for Epiphany, you know, just a little song that, you know, is integral to the story. And I just forgot half the lines about halfway through and just made it up. And I glanced in the wing, and my director was just like that. Oh my God.
Oh, that's funny.
What are you doing?
It's the worst feeling, isn't it? Especially in front of people, because you're panicked. You're like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Like, and then the brain just goes, well, this word rhymes with this one, so give this. And then you glance over, just like, give me the word, please.
Right, I know. And that's like, that song for me too, that's such a hard one, because, and you know, that's one of the things that was hard about working on the music for Final Fantasy, is because it did all have kind of a Japanese origin. Some of the lyrics, some of them sort of make more sense than others, but sometimes they're kind of, you know, they're not how I would normally express myself. You know, they're not like a normal pop lyric or something. So that makes it a little hard to remember sometimes, because it's not as typical. You know, it's not like you're, you know, some of the normal sentences. So it's almost more musically, like you have to just
musically. Some of the phrasing musically is quite. It's not what is kind of considered conventional in the West, if you will.
Right.
In kind of like musical phrasing and stuff. There's like these very long legato lines that then have these short staccato bursts afterwards. And it's like, oh, we don't necessarily approach classical or pop singing like that when we write in this.
It's very, totally. It's almost like orchestral in origin, almost. You know, it's almost like something a violin would do. In fact, I talked about that at an interview last week, how it's almost, that's what's been interesting about this, is working on music, that it's not necessarily written by like a pop singer, it's written by an orchestrator, you know, and so it's, I mean, the melodies are beautiful, but sometimes they don't always allow for like taking a breath, or, you know, there's not, you know, they have to, and that's what sort of a collaboration is to come in, because I have to come in as the singer and go, okay, well, that's not like physically possible. We have to maybe make an adjustment there, because I'm going to have to breathe. I can't get through the whole 3 lines and connect all those notes and have it sound okay. You know, like it's not going to work. So that's where, you know, you have to sort of, there has to be some give and take, you know, so.
Yeah, definitely.
But it can be really challenging.
And that quite nicely kind of drifts into my kind of, you know, my next questions really, because obviously you've worked with Arnie Roth, who is phenomenally talented, but you've also worked with Nobu Uematsu and Masayoshi Soken on in my mind, two of the best video game soundtrack pieces in both Answers and Dragon Song. I do argue with some of my friends, because they're like, Answers is like the seminal Final Fantasy 14 piece. I'm like, yes, it is. But
a lot of people like Dragon Song.
There's something about Dragon Song that is just beautifully heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is.
Lyrically about it, and kind of like, what has it been like to work with? Because, you know, Nobu Uematsu has been around for, you know, he's been writing music for Square for donkey's years now, you know.
Right.
What is it like to work with both him and to work with Masayoshi Soken? Because obviously the two of them come across in interviews as very different personalities.
Oh, they're really different, for sure. No, they are really different. But you know, one thing they both have in common is they're both very silly. They both really like to move around and they have fun and laugh all the time, which I really appreciate. They're just fun, lighthearted guys, which just makes it really a pleasure to work with them. I haven't worked as much with Sokan, just because he didn't write any of the theme songs that I sang. But I did work with him on FanFest, which was awesome. And he's obviously a really versatile musician and a great composer. And hopefully I'll get a chance to. I'd love to work on one of his original pieces. I mean, I did perform some of the songs like Oblivion. I did a piano version of that at the FanFest, which I really enjoyed working on. And that was really cool. But as far as working with Nobu-san on the songs that he wrote, that we did the theme songs, which were, Revolutions and what do you call it? Answers and Dragon Song. I know, I'm getting all these lights are coming on my computer. I'm trying to like, stop, everyone, leave me alone. Distracting me. Anyway, but working with Nobu was amazing because one thing I think I appreciate so much about Nobu is that he really wanted it to be a collaboration. He really wanted me to add my Susan style to it. And he wanted to know, my interpretation or any kind of vocal stylized kind of things that I added to it. He wanted that. He wanted me to sort of like, here was like the skeleton that he gave me to work with, and he wanted me to really light it up with my own style. And so I really appreciated that because it was, he really respected, me as an artist and what I thought and how I felt like it should be sung. And which is really great because it goes to show, I mean, he wanted me to sing these songs because he already liked what I did and what I offered as a singer, versus someone hiring me and going, well, I want this and you've got to fit in this box, he's much more open and creative. And I really, it made it really nice to work on it because I could really give it my own thing, which is a lesson unto itself, because so many times in life we try to force things and you never really end up with the best creative thing when you don't let people really embrace their own gift. It's like you can have an idea, but then you have to let people sort of be themselves too. And that usually will end up something with much better, so that's like it's an important life principle,
Absolutely.
But yeah.
I mean,
cool.
And that is kind of something that is just, it's true of everyone who works in the creative sector, really, that actually if we work in the creative sector, we work as part of a team, and actually everyone has got valid ideas and input and stuff, and actually it's really important. That must, that's incredible. That's really, really cool.
Really is. It is. It's really cool. So I always appreciate that about him. So
yeah, and that must just be, and as a performer, that must just be such a nice feeling to kind of have these opinions, because sometimes as a performer you're overlooked. Musical directors, in my experience, tend to be a bit more like, no, we're going to do it like this, and you're going to do it like this, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I was going to do this here, I was going to make that a little bit more legato, and that was going to be a little bit more staccato, that was going to be a bit more spoken wordy, and they're a bit more. Then I've worked with some musical directors that are like, no, you're going to do it like this. Don't work with someone who's actually very much like, well, what's your input and what do you think about this and how can we tweak this and stuff? Must be so amazing.
No, it is. And listen, and there's sometimes I go take it too far too. I mean, there's been shows like on some of the Distant World shows where I might get a little too stylized, and and sometimes Arnie and I will have a conversation. He'd be like, hey, you're really getting away from the original melody, and we always want to try to respect that. And sometimes I don't even realize I'm doing it. So it's always good too, and that's where I think it's so important to have people that you're working with that you respect, that, there's mutual respect and there's mutual trust, that I know, if I am doing that he'll tell me, and he knows I want to do a good job, and, and I'm happy to like make those adjustments too, so there's kind of you create boundaries, where it's okay to do a certain amount, but then you want to also honor the song and what the song is. And obviously I can't just go crazy up there because I've got an orchestra, and Arnie's trying to, obviously lead us all and really bring us all. We have to work together up there, and if I'm just doing my own, I'm just gonna do my own Susan thing here. I mean, that's not gonna work, because I'm part of the bigger picture. It's not all about me. It's about, really trying to fit myself also into what's happening and enhance the music, to bring something special to the music. So it's definitely like a balancing act, and you have to communicate, and you got to, and you have to know what we're doing. I mean, I know what fans are here for, and I want them to, they love this music. So I want to do a great job of giving them this music that they love. I mean, that's really my number one job is to just give it passion and to sing it with all my heart and to sing it excellently, and you know what I mean? I mean, that's,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that's sort of, you have to understand that's the goal. It's not to show off
Yeah.
or to, you know what I mean? It's just, that's just not the right environment for that. It's to really, you know, honor the position that you're been given, you know, so.
And I mean, you know, anyone who's been to a Distant World concert will probably echo what I'm about to say, because actually it's just, when having seen you perform on stage, you know, when I saw you at the Royal Albert Hall, you know, I'd never been there for a show, and then I was suddenly there. And then I was watching the music from my favorite games being played, and then you came on stage and did answers, and I know I was like I said, my friend and I were literally sat next to each other. Both of us were a little bit weepy because we were like, oh my Lord, this is so beautiful. But it was like the whole of the Royal Albert Hall was just like in this just complete state of just wow.
Right.
And then you came on and did Dragon Song a little bit later, and it was exactly the same thing. And we were just like, wow. You know, it was
awesome.
just, and yeah, I mean, I was speaking to some friends that were also there, because I found out later on that I had other friends there exactly the same gig. And we were all in agreement that it was just like watching those two pieces for a game that we've all played for such a long time being done on stage in such a beautiful fashion was just stunning.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I'm so glad you guys could come to the show. Hopefully we'll be doing more of them at some point here. You know, it's just been such a crazy period of life, you know, with just all of this. So, which is why, you know, I've started some of my online stuff too, which I would love to share. Can I share a little bit?
I was about to say, that literally brings me into my next topic, which is to talk about all of the new stuff. So
I know
you're currently, as you said at the start, you're working on some new music, and you've got a load of other online stuff. I've got about 5 questions linked up to this. People are going to be watching this going,
no problem.
These things are normally 20 minutes. He's going on for ages.
I know, it's so I can be brief too. I can sum it up.
I'm not fussed.
You're not worried. Okay, good.
People will watch it.
That's right. That's right. Awesome. No, during the pandemic, I think it really underlined that I really wanted to work more in my online community. I mean, it's sometimes hard to maintain when you're touring and as busy as I am, but it's something I really, because it is an online game, it's kind of a no-brainer. Like, you really need to make sure you're connecting. And as much as I love working on Final Fantasy music and singing it for everyone, I'm also a singer-songwriter, and I write music. And I've actually written a lot of songs for film and for television shows here in the US. I've done lots of vocal work on all those platforms as well. And even had some of my songs like in heavy rotation on radio and stuff in the past. So I really want to share my music also. And my hope is that as people get to know my music, because they do like my voice from the game, that maybe they'll give my music a chance and listen, because I think there's a lot of similarities to those two things. So it's been really exciting for me to sort of build that platform. And I've done that a few ways. Like, I've got a Facebook group that's definitely focused on Final Fantasy. It's called Calloway Nation. So if you're interested in joining that, please click below. Maybe we can have a link or something.
Oh, there's going to be a link in the description.
Oh, awesome. It's a free group. It doesn't cost anything to join, but it's a great way. I have a little closer relationship with a lot of the people that are in that group. And it's a great place to sort of get to know me a little better and my music. And I share a lot of Final Fantasy stuff too, of memories and videos and just things like that. So I think it's a real fun group. The content, I really try to keep the content high quality. I have a Facebook. Thank you.
Group. I'm in there, and it is a lovely group.
Thank you. I'm so glad you like it. And then additionally, I've started a private fan club, and it's right now it's on Patreon. It's going to be moving to a new platform that we're designing right now. So it's going to have its very own site, which I think is going to be really awesome, because it's going to give the user a really escalated experience. It's going to have like a video area and a music area, and then all the different events and stuff, we record them so that if you can't come to the event, you can at least watch it after. And so that's going to be really amazing. And I love that too, because a lot of the fans are like, well, gee, we love your music, and how can we help? And this is a great way to help an indie artist such as myself, because it lets you partner with me, and I keep it really cheap and affordable so people can do it. And it's not this huge expensive thing. It's like a cup of coffee, and you can, you're in, so it's not any kind of big commitment. But I do a lot of exclusive events just for that fan club. We're doing like the celebrity interviews. I've had a number of guests on the show that are video game stars, and we have music people too, because I know a lot of people that are out there. I had the bass player on American Idol did an interview with us. So it's been really a cool, a very cool like experience, and that's all exclusive stuff just to the fan club. So no one gets to come unless they're in the fan club for that. So, and then that's all stuff you can watch after. So the fan club's really cool. Plus there's a ton of other things. There's like a WhatsApp community exclusive to the fan club that is amazing. And what I love to see is that it's really become like a little family where not only am I inspiring people and trying to get to know them and we've all become friends, but there's people that are also interacting with each other. And my fan club, they've all become friends with each other, which is really awesome. So there's all this like mutual encouragement, and like if someone's going through something hard, we share in that with them and we'll give them support, or maybe advice or whatever, whatever's needed. So it's very personal. And if you're looking for a personal connection and a personal experience, I highly recommend the fan club because it's just getting bigger and better all the time. So that's really cool. And then the third thing I'll share with you is that I've also started during the pandemic here, and I'm going to continue on, is I've developed an artist coaching platform. And so what I do now is I'm doing vocal coaching, songwriting coaching, and performance coaching. And most of my students right now are singer-songwriters, but I've kind of worked on developing this coaching platform that really helps people take their talent to the next level, whether it's improving their singing skills, which I started doing this. I'm interrupting myself now. I started doing the coaching because I actually we were doing a Distant Worlds show in Boston, and I was asked to go to Berklee School of Music and do like a master's class, and I talked about singing and performing and songwriting, and it was so amazing. And I just love the energy of the students so much. And I started thinking, I'm like, sometimes you don't realize how much you've learned, because I do have a degree in music. I studied classical voice for 10 years. I studied classical piano for 18. So, and again, songwriting, I've been writing songs since I was literally 12 years old. And I've done so much with that. I've been a session musician, at a very high level in the United States, working on, you can't even believe I've probably done hundreds of advertising campaigns and things like that and all kinds of stuff, so, and I'm an engineer, I do music production. So, I have so much knowledge and experience, and it's silly not to use it. And so many coaches don't have that. Like they maybe went to school for teaching or coaching, but they haven't actually had the life experience. Yeah. And so to add that life experience piece, to be able to offer that to my students, I really feel like gives them a huge benefit, because I really know what is going to bring them success, because I'm doing it, and I continue to do it. It's not even like I used to do it. Like I'm still doing this stuff, and I'm a very active artist. So to be able to share that is amazing. So I'm gonna have much more information about that on the new website. That's going to be done at the end of February. But I have a few different coaching options and platforms. I'm even starting a group coaching thing for people who maybe they can't afford one-on-one coaching, but they still want to learn some tips from me. And that'll meet a couple times a month, and with, in a small group setting. So that would be maybe another option. So there's some different ways that you can work with me or benefit from my coaching platform. So yeah, I'm very excited about that. So yeah, so that's all the stuff I got going. So
that sounds amazing.
And working on new music, of course.
And working on new music, which
that's the whole most important thing is the music.
Exactly.
So I got a ton of new songs I'm working on. I'm going to be recording them. It's going to be really ripped down, acoustic, kind of organic record, piano and vocal, maybe some strings here and there. So it's just, I really want to keep it about my voice and about the songs, because I really feel like that is really what the fans are going to love the most. And another benefit of being my fan club, I just want to throw out there, is that I'm very influenced by their feedback, and my fan club gets a front row seat to telling me what songs they think I should do, what they'd like to hear more of, what they like, what they don't like, what their favorite stuff is, or suggestions. They have my full attention and my full ear. So never feel like your opinion doesn't matter, because if you're in my fan club, your opinion matters. I will listen. Yeah. So if there's a favorite song that you're like, I wish you would do a cover of this, that's a great opportunity to let your voice be heard. So
that's amazing. And kind of talking about because obviously, like you said, you've been working in this industry for years. You've written loads of your own songs, and you've done some phenomenal covers as well. And when you're writing, especially like with the new stuff and kind of with some of the older stuff as well, the stuff that you recorded during the pandemic, which I was listening to, Say Goodbye. Oh my God.
Oh, thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you. I'm glad you like that song.
Beautiful song. If you've not watched that yet, people, go check it out, because there's probably going to be a link down below. There's going to be lots of links.
Awesome. I'm glad you like that one. I know that was it's kind of a darker song, but it was like, I think it's an important song because it talks about such an important issue. I was going
to ask about kind of like the inspiration, because that and Favorite Scar, I love them, to be fair. They are, and they felt, when you listen to them, they're very personal songs and stuff. Kind of when you're
Sure.
approaching kind of like writing your own music, where is the inspiration coming from? Because I know that we'll talk about it in a minute, but you've also got your Scar Stories, kind of like a podcasting that you do as
Yes,
well.
and I didn't even yes, podcast as well. It was another thing. So I know I forgot something.
I look like a professional interviewer at this point. I was like, I've got a
I
list.
know. See, look at you, Josh. You're rocking it.
But yeah, kind of like for these, where does this inspiration for these songs come from? Because they do feel really personal. Is that kind of like from personal previous experiences, or is it kind of like from conversations with people? Where does it come from? Because they are beautiful songs.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. They are definitely very personal. And I think that's always the best place to start as a writer, is writing about your experience and where you are right now. And it's great. I don't always do that. I have written songs from other people's perspectives, especially when I'm writing for film or something like that, because sometimes you have to sort of be in the spirit of what that character might be feeling or going through. And I do, and then there's a huge value to that, because obviously each of us are limited by our experiences. And if we only write about our own experience, then we're going to hit a wall at some point, so it's good to be able to kind of do that and to put yourself in someone else's shoes. But both those songs are actually very personal to me. I Say Goodbye is really a song about addiction, and it's about having someone in your life, which I've had the experience, unfortunately, a couple of times with some people in my life that had really struggled with a problem and weren't really willing to see that problem, which you often find, people maybe struggle with drugs or with alcohol and they're not far enough down into that path to really see that it's a problem and it's really affecting their life and it's unhealthy. And so it's kind of a song about really having to let someone go and knowing they're not going to maybe understand, but also knowing that if you don't, it's become very destructive to that relationship, So I think it's an important song, because I think that's a hard thing to do. It's hard, especially if it's someone maybe in your family, which I think a lot of people go through that of, what do you do if it's someone in your family? You can't throw your family member out on the street or something, which you don't want to do. But at the same time, sometimes by withdrawing, they have to experience enough isolation. Well, here's the thing, like one thing that I learned in my journey with all of this is that you cannot, if someone is not allowed to reap the negative consequences of their choices, it decreases the likelihood that they will change, and part of what helps somebody see that maybe this is I've got a problem with this, is by having some negative consequences. So I think, like, for example, if you're a parent and you have a child that's doing this, if there's no consequences, that's part of parenting, right? Is that, our parents have to do that for us. Like if we do something dumb, if we're not punished, or if there's not some kind of bad consequence, we're going to do it again. Like we have to realize, like, well, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to get grounded, or I don't want to, I don't want to lose my phone privileges or whatever the thing is they're going to take away. So, that's where I think that's the song. It really talks about consequences and setting boundaries, but also recognizing that, there's the line in the song that says, I can't fight if you don't fight. If you're not going to fight and try to fix this, that I can't fight for you. You have to want to make this change, So that's kind of what that song's about. And Favorite Scar is kind of accumulation of some things, but it's about letting go of an unhealthy relationship, and something that really, sometimes we don't realize, or we have the perspective, we can think something is one way, and then as we learn more about a person, we see that maybe we didn't have the full story. And so this is sort of a song about having a relationship with someone that maybe you didn't have all the information, and then you find that out. And so you feel maybe a bit of betrayal, and at the same time, you're kind of torn because you had love for this person, and you cared about them. And that can be really hard. Relationships are great motivators for songs because they're so complicated for all of us. And it's like, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship or our parents or, whatever we're facing in life, I'm endlessly inspired by all the different things that I feel. And I think, it's funny, when I was coaching yesterday, I was talking to one of my students about this, that, writing a song, I think the focus of writing a song or writing a good song is really trying to find something that we all feel and saying it in a fresh way, finding some kind of fresh way to present like something that, we all share, because that's what music kind of does. It kind of reminds us we're all human and that we all kind of go through this stuff, and I'm always wanting for people to feel like they're understood, by me. And then at the same time, I have a lot of new songs that talk about hope and the source of that hope and where I find hope and inspiration. And because I do go through all these hard things, but yet at the end of the day, I also think that embracing healing and moving forward and, and being positive, is definitely part of all that too.
Absolutely.
So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was a very long answer to your question.
No, well, it was a really interesting answer because, a lot of people go through kind of like, toxic relationships, be it with, someone that they're romantically involved with or just through friendships and stuff. Or, like you say, they have people that struggle with a vice that is destructive in some way, shape or form, normally some form of addiction. And actually, kind of the difficult thing is sometimes the best thing for that person. It's that old adage of if you love something, you need to let it go.
Right.
And if someone is kind of, they do struggle with addictions and stuff and they're not listening to you and they're draining you, you can't help them if you're drained yourself. So you kind of need to give yourself that distance and stuff. And I think it is something that's, it's very true to an awful lot of people because, I can think off the top of my head of a handful of people in my life that have
for sure
been in similar situations and I've had to make that tough decision and stuff. And I think that's why the songs kind of resonated with me, to be fair, because I was listening to them like I can just because lyrically they are, musically they're stunning, and lyrically that's so poignant as well. The way that you kind of structured the lyricism and stuff is just so poignant at times. It's
thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I always appreciate when people really listen deeply to what my music is trying to say. So I really appreciate that. And that's always my hope, because I think especially during this time of COVID and everything, there's so, this is a scary time for everybody. I mean, because, who would have thought something like this could happen? And I think it's really taken people's sense of safety away in so many levels, because it's like, it's almost been shocking because you're like, wow, like, is it the end of the world? Like, what's going to happen? Like everything I thought was sort of, I could count on, has changed so quickly, and then you also have this whole layer of people choosing to handle it in a destructive way. If people treating each other very badly online, there's all this fighting and anger and people just not getting along and arguing about what the solution should be. And you know what I mean? And just all of that going on. And then you also have, there's a lot of fear and then there's people who are like substance abuse is like through the roof now. I mean, and even like I was reading a statistic the other day, like teen suicide and stuff is up like 85% I don't know how it is in other countries, but in the United States,
it's up considerably in the UK as well. Or, attempted suicide and mental health and issues with young people is through the roof over here.
Absolutely. And it's really disturbing. And as an artist, I look at this stuff and it really bothers me because I feel like I have an opportunity as a community leader, and as someone who's in the public eye to some degree, to really make a difference in a positive way. And I think that's why one of the things that's so important to me with these communities is creating a safe space for people where they can find friendship, where they can find support, where they can contact me if they need to, if they have something really going on and they really want someone to talk to. Like, I answer messages all the time, and it's so important to me that fans feel like they are seen and they're heard, and that even if everything in their life is crazy, that they still they can find a community with the communities that I'm offering, where they can feel like they have a place and that they are valued and that there's people here that will care for them and want to help. And I think that's really important. In fact, another thing I just want to quickly add too, which is kind of why I started the podcast as a source of inspiration. But in addition to my artist coaching, I actually, in the next month, starting in March, I'm going to be offering life coaching also. So even if you're not a musician, I actually am working on my certification right now for that. And as I've been just sort of in this role that I find myself with doing the podcast and everything else, it's like become this natural extension of me, of wanting to also help fans find out what their purpose is and helping them, inspire them to maybe make some changes, or maybe they've got a bunch of unhealthy relationships, because like what you were saying, Josh, like there are so many unhealthy things that we can't control that just happen to us, whether it's our childhood or our parents, or maybe it's just where the school we're at and there's just negative stuff happening and we don't know how to manage it. But just because something unhealthy happens to you doesn't mean you have to be unhealthy the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to be broken the rest of our life. We can actually heal from that, learn from it, and become stronger than you could ever believe, you know? And part of what helps us on that journey is coaching, which is something I've gotten a ton of, you know, counseling and coaching, just because we all go through stuff. And it's like, it's helped me so much. And just to be able to do that and be like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to get some advice with this and work with somebody. It's transformational. And it's the thing that's helped me overcome my stuff and things I've been through. And I just want to help other people on that journey, because that statistic is alarming. And it's like, we all need to be, that should bother all of us, you know, and
absolutely.
You know what I mean? So that's sort
absolutely.
of another piece of this. It's like, you know, I'm an artist, but I really want to be, you know, someone who cares about not just entertaining you, but really helping inspire people to, you know, overcome things. So
and that mindset is just phenomenal, if I'm honest. It's genuinely amazing, you know, because, and like you say, you know, kind of getting that outside support sometimes, it's that first step that is the most difficult. You know, I know in my own life I've had, you know, I've been supported by a great many people, and I've had discussions with counselors and coaches and therapists and stuff as well, and they've all really helped me become the person I am today. And it's that first step that is sometimes the hardest to do. And actually, if it's someone who, you know, like yourself, who is in the public eye to a degree and, you know, has this kind of presence and whatnot, then that's going to potentially help people actually take that first step to get the help they need, which ultimately is, you know, one of the best things you can do for yourself. It's terrifying at first, but actually that first step is one of the most important things. And I think what you're doing there is to be completely and utterly commended, because it is incredible.
Oh, thank you. Well, I hope I can just make a difference. And that's the biggest thing, because, you know, we all have a little corner of the world that we can influence, you know, and it's like, if I can use what I've learned and my music and, you know, my faith and everything that I feel like God has put inside of me, then all the better, because I really feel like that is part of the solution. You know, we talk about vaccines and all these other things that will solve things, but we don't talk about solving what's going on here, you know, and I think this is actually the core of what really, you know, it's like we learn all these things in life, but we don't learn how to be a great person. We don't learn how to have a great relationship. What does a healthy marriage look like? What does a healthy friendship look like? What does it mean to, and we don't sometimes feel like we have those tools, like we want that, but we don't really maybe have the tools. And I think that's where just a few adjustments in our life can really change the quality of our relationships. Because when you think about it, the quality of our relationships really has an impact on our happiness level. I mean, it really does. When our relationships are crappy, like, it doesn't matter how much money you're making or anything else, it sucks. I mean, your life is not a happy place, because you don't have anyone to share that with, or you don't, you know what I mean? Or even your own self-esteem.
Oh, no, absolutely.
You feel good about yourself. So it's like, we need to fix this first. I feel like our soul is central. You know, our soul is central. That's the foundation. And then everything else, because when that's all settled, then everything else in your life, you tend to be able to create a lot of beautiful things, you know, with your work, with your relationships, with, you know what I mean? It all comes out of that. So that's a lot about the coaching program that I'm kind of designing right now for that, is going to be focused on that, you know. So
it's amazing. And actually, and I completely agree. You know, you need to do the work on you before, you know, well, technically I still am. I don't actually do it anymore, but I did spend 6 years of my life as a teacher, and I used to say to students when they were like, I'm really worried about my friend and blah, 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 but I'm also really worried about this. I was like, well, you need to work on, before you can help other people, you need to help yourself. Because if you don't help yourself, you're running at half capacity. And if you're running at half capacity, then you're not going to be able to support your friends as much.
Right.
You need to focus on you and get yourself better. And I think with everything everyone across the globe has been through over the last 2 and a bit years now, with the pandemic and everything, you know, that's something that I think a lot of people need, is that kind of, and it does help at times to have someone to say to you, it's okay to be selfish, to get yourself better before you go and help other people.
Well, and it's not, you know, because it's the greatest, and it is, it's the greatest gift that we can give the world, is a healthy version of ourselves. And I think it's kind of like what I call the airplane principle. It's like, if you're in an airplane, you know, and the oxygen is going, you know, the oxygen is lowered, you always put a mask on your face yourself first before you help another person. Because if you're passed out, you can't help another person. And that's the thing. If we all take that responsibility and heal what's broken in us, and believe me, we're all broken in some way. It's just, you know, as you get older, you become really aware of that. I mean, and it's like, if we don't take that time to really be honest about our own weaknesses and things that we are stuck in, we really limit what we can become. And that's the thing. And if we all did that, that would change the statistic. And that's the thing. When you see that statistic, it's like, there's people that are hurting and they just don't know where to start. They don't know how to even begin the journey. And I just figured it's something I can do that, well, I care about it so much. And it's so part of my music. I mean, especially these newer songs that I'm writing, there's so much of them are about empowering people, no matter what they're facing, to like not give up and to have hope and to know that they're not alone, and to, that there is a love that's there that can help and that will heal. And I think it's all just part of who I am, so it's a very natural evolution, so excited about it. Yay.
And it sounds really, really amazing actually as well. And I'm really looking forward to seeing some of kind of the updates and stuff on that.
Awesome. I'll have to have me back on again. I can give you a 411 on the latest and greatest. So.
Oh, absolutely. We'd definitely get you back on. Honestly,
awesome,
fantastic. And it's not over yet. We've still got more
questions. You have more questions? Okay. All right, a few more. I know
we'll wrap this up quickly though. Right. So the next thing I want to talk about, you've mentioned it a few times, is your podcast series, Scar Stories.
Yes.
Which, if people haven't watched it, you need to go and watch it, because it is it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. Kind of how did you come up with the idea of doing Scar Stories? Was it during this kind of process of kind of this thinking about this coaching and this kind of fan club and all these other things, and kind of like starting to look at how you can be this kind of like, if amazing community kind of lead thing? Or was it kind of a discussion you had with a couple of friends and said, actually, I want to look at this a bit more?
Well, you know what? It's all those things. I mean, it kind of evolved. What happened is I was trying to actually think of a fun thing to do to promote my song Favorite Scar. And because it was coming out, and I started thinking about Favorite Scar and what it was, and how basically we all have a scar story. We all have something that's sort of like, it's healed. Maybe even it's healed, because all of our scars are in different stages of healing. Some of them are fresh, some of them are years old, whatever, but they're still there. They're part of us. It's not like there's no, they always leave some kind of mark on us. Even if we try to use it for something good, it's still kind of a pain or a sensitivity or, an experience that we had. And so I started thinking about that, like that we all have them. And I went live, and I started doing this live thing of like every week having a different guest on that would share their scar story. And I started with some of the fans were sharing, and I started getting so much feedback. It was overwhelming how many people who were joining in on the discussion, who were tuning in. And it was like, I was really just trying to promote the song. But as I started seeing all the interaction, light bulb went off. And I was like, wow, I'm like, this is like a thing. Like, this is something that maybe I should keep doing. And it's hard to do like at a live show at the same time every week, which we're still waffling with what the future will be with Scar Stories as far as how we do it. But at the very least, I was like, I want this to be, I think it's a podcast actually, and I'd like to do this as a podcast. And to think about like, because it's really a song that celebrates that very thing of just people who have been through hard things. And I started kind of thinking of themes and topics, and we talked about, I did like a series on addiction and all the different kinds of addiction you can do. As you know, because you sounds like you've been watching it. So we've been doing things on like overcoming stuff, people who've overcome cancer. And like I had a Navy SEAL on that, was like this, tough guy that's gone through all this stuff that, he was on. So it's been really, I've had a lot of interesting people come on as guests, and I've been as amazed as anybody how it's all sort of come together. And I love doing it. And we're taking a little break. We are going to start it up again. So if anyone who has been like, where is it? It's coming back. We did a bunch of, because it's one of those things to keep it going. As you can hear, I've got so much going on. Yeah. And I'm trying to sort of get things organized before we reintroduce it. And I might have a co-host joining me. If you remember, I've had a gentleman on named Keith Harriman who's been on, and he's really great because he is a clinical psychologist. So he's kind of gives me some street cred with some of this stuff when we're talking about. So it's not like people are like, well, what does she know? It's like, well, hey, I got Keith stuff and he knows. So it's kind of like, you know what I mean? So that's kind of nice. And the thing I love about Keith is he's actually a gamer. And so not only is he a psychologist, but he's also a gamer. And we both are Christians. We both share our faith, in God and stuff. So that certainly, certainly affects like how we view things and stuff, but it's not like a preachy show. It doesn't, we have all different kinds of people that listen, and it's really about just trying to find answers and hope together on some of these issues, and we're going to definitely tackle that again and start a new series. We haven't decided what it's going to be yet, but we're working on that right now. So it's going to launch in the next couple of months, and we'll do more of those. But that's sort of how it started. It really kind of evolved into something, and it's really been, and I've had a great feedback from it, and it's tremendously fun to do, and I think.
I mean,
Oh,
when I've watched some of the episodes and stuff, it's been really quite poignant and open conversations, which has been really refreshing, actually, because a lot of people decide, oh, I'm not going to talk about this stuff, but actually it's created more of a dialogue around these things we're okay to talk about, which is lovely.
And that's really what we want to do. We want to try to confront things that we're all kind of going through, and we don't really, because there's a lot of hard issues in our world right now that there's not clear answers to, or how do we handle it? And we are all really different. And how do we, like, even just knowing how to disagree with each other, and maybe we have different opinions about certain things, but that doesn't mean we have to cancel each other. Like this whole cancel culture, like if somebody doesn't agree with me, then I'm going to unfollow them. I mean, it's just all that. It's just so stupid to me.
Oh, absolutely. No, I completely agree.
I mean, it's just like, really, it's just, it's okay that we don't agree sometimes. We can learn some things from our different perspectives. And thank God we all are different, because I don't think we're all supposed to necessarily be the same. That's how we grow.
God, no.
And how do you feel now? Well, totally. And not only that, but how you feel now, is going to be different in 10 years. And if you just, you're going to end up canceling yourself later on. You'll be like, I'm canceling myself. Because it's just, the thing we need to learn, I think, Josh, is that we're all different, and we need to focus on grace. We need to be quick to forgive and slow to judge. And not because we don't have all the information. In fact, one of my favorite posts, I had to repost this. I snagged it from somewhere on Instagram, but there was this picture of this dog. I don't know if you follow me on Twitter at all, but I posted this thing yesterday. This picture of this dog, and it's like you see him. He's got his jaw around this sheep. Like it looks like he's hurting the sheep, depending on where the picture's cut. And the one picture you see it looks like he's gonna hurt the sheep, but then the next picture you see that he's actually pulling the sheep out of the water. He's actually saving the poor thing. So it just goes to show you that our perspective sometimes on stuff is just not right, and that's why it needs to be informed and educated. And if we're going to make an evaluation about something, and certainly it's important to stand up for things we believe. I think that's important. At the same time, we need to make sure we've got all the information. And I think there's a lot of just people being very flippant about stuff, or just assuming things. And it's just not as simple as that.
And I think as well, something that I've picked up on, and something that it's really weird having this conversation. It feels like I've said these exact words as a teacher to students. I've been like, you need to kind of just like not judge people straight away. You need to like take a breath and kind of, just chill out a bit, actually get the facts, find out what was said. Don't just take something out of context and all these things, and kind of, I think
try to listen to each other, because
exactly,
because ultimately if you think your point of view is so strong and someone disagrees with it and you feel passionately about that, you're right, the best way to promote your agenda, if you will, would be to listen to that person, listen to the reasons that they feel the way they feel. And maybe they're legit reasons, and maybe it will not only make you more empathetic to their journey, but also maybe you'll learn some things, and it might even change your opinion. You might be like, well, okay, if I'd gone through that, I might feel like that too, and maybe the truth is in the middle, it's maybe not so black and white. Maybe there's, and so that level of compassion is something I don't think that, I think we need to be, much more free with that, and less free with our, if we're going to be free to cancel, then, I would challenge people to be twice as free to forgive and love.
Oh, absolutely.
And to show grace,
And I think right now the world needs a lot more love and a lot less angry people tweeting about things that they're slightly bent out of shape for. Ultimately. No,
and it's easy to do when you're behind a keyboard because nobody sees you. I mean, we do things on social media we would never do to someone's face, and that's got to tell you something. And that's kind of a check for me. It's like, if I wouldn't say that directly to someone, I probably shouldn't tweet it.
So that's how I work in my mind. Most of my tweets, as I'm sure you've seen on the very rare occasions where I'm not just retweeting stuff from Robot Republic, is me just being like, I just end up contemplating on whether fixing my portfolio website counts as procrastination or whether it's actually me being productive. And then I get a friend, then my friends text me and go, it's procrastinating because you've been doing it all day. I'm like, cool, wonderful, right, okay then. It's kind of, but yeah, my mindset's always been, if I'm not going to say it to someone's face, I'm not going to put it on Twitter because there's no point.
Right. No,
what does it achieve?
For sure. No, I think it's, there's things that need to be dealt with face to face, and there's, social media is a great tool, but it's a tool, and it doesn't take the place of, we need to learn how to have healthy relationships. Yeah. And talk, not like take it out on, or, just that passive aggressive, like we tweeting about stuff to try to like hoping that person will see it and, know that it's directed at them. Like that stuff's just the stuff that's so not healthy.
Yeah. And I don't know. I look at those things and I just go, it's just a bit schoolyard behavior.
Yes.
Juvenile.
It really is.
Sounds really cynical, but I'm like, it strikes every time I see that. I'm like, it's just so juvenile. Grow up, please. Get a grip.
It's like waving a flag to me that says I need counseling, because that's, it's not healthy. It's not. And the thing is, you're not. It's really unhealthy for you. Forget anyone else that maybe you're hurting or offending. It's that and about that. It's just not, because the thing is, we're creatures of habit. We learn how to. If we have a way of dealing with our own hurt or anger in that kind of way, that's not going to help us. We need to learn how to be direct and to talk to people when we're upset. And it's something I'm terrible at that. That's something I've had to really work on, because I hate conflict, and I've had to learn to be direct. I have a fiance, and we get along really great, but there's not always. I mean, there's things sometimes I'll get really angry. I'll be like, and I just, am I going to just ice him out for 2 days, or am I going to say, hey, you know what, like, you maybe didn't mean this way, but this like kind of hurt my feelings when you said that. And like, let's talk about this, and then he has the opportunity then to say, oh, I'm sorry. I totally didn't mean that. That's not what I meant at all. So then you have this opportunity to like stand up for yourself, healthy. You give the other person a chance to respond, also healthy. And the third thing that happens is now you have even a deeper connection, because you've talked about something and you've communicated. So it's a win-win. Yeah,
definitely. Anyway. And to the people that are watching this, you've just had a very free preview of what you can expect from Susan's amazing life coaching stuff.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Brutally honest, but hopefully helpful.
Yeah, but I don't know. I've always been a bit more. I'm quite brutally honest with people at times.
Right.
I know that there's a time to be sensitive, but there's a time to actually be a bit more blunt with people. Not blunt in the kind of like, you're an idiot kind of way. Although as a teacher, I found myself saying that quite a lot.
Oh, for sure. I'm sure a natural coach just with your experience.
Yeah. But yeah, there is definitely a time to be a bit more kind of assertive with people and kind of say, you kind of need to get a grip.
Right, for sure.
Definitely. Last question.
Okay.
Obviously, my second to last question we've already covered, because we've got new music, we've got the coaching, we've got the fan club, we've got obviously, because I was going to be what can we expect from you this year, but we've gone through it already. It's amazing.
Right.
Last question was, I was obviously discussed this with our lovely editor Callie, and I said to our editor Callie, he looked at the questions, he was just like, there's one question that I think you should add in at the end as a more light-hearted question.
Okay.
Because obviously with us being very gaming orientated, so I'm going to apologize. I found it mildly amusing writing it. I'm going to apologize now though, because if you were, or you might do, don't know, a very busy person, might not, if you were or do play Final Fantasy 14, what would you play as in terms of race and job or class?
Well, some of that stuff I haven't wrapped my head around all of it, because I know there's so many choices, but I know there's like a healer. Isn't there like a healer class?
Yep.
Or is it a healer job? I'm not sure if it's a job.
There's like 4 of them, but healer works. Okay.
But yeah, I think I'd probably be a healer, just because that's true to my heart, like I'm always trying to help. I'm always trying to encourage. I'm trying to like make people's lives better, or just, make them feel safe, make them feel loved, so it's like, that would be like a natural fit for me. I'm not really, even though I do have an aggressive, like fighter side, I'd probably be that person that was always like throwing band-aids on everybody, so.
I play a healing class, but over the years, I've just become a very angry healer nowadays. I'm just like, I'm like, you stood over there, you took damage on purpose, I'm not healing you.
Right.
That's just fair become. Yeah.
That's funny. No, I love that. I love that they even have that as an option. Like, it's such a beautiful symbol, you know? It's very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
very, very cool.
Well,
Awesome.
before we wrap this up, Susan, where
Yes.
can the lovely people that are watching this find you?
Well, you can find me all over the internet, guys. I've got a website, susancalloway.com, which is being redone. So the new site will be up probably in like a couple weeks, maybe sooner, but like March 1st for sure of 2022, depending when you watch this video. You can find me at Facebook, facebook.com/Susan Calloway. That's my main Facebook page. There's my Facebook group, which is Calloway Nation. You can find me there. Just request to join, but unless you're, it's pretty easy to join.
I was gonna say, it's an easy. They let me in.
Yeah, exactly. See, and we know how shady Josh is. So.
Exactly. I mean, God, he just dresses in black all the time.
Exactly. So there's that. My Twitter, very active Twitter community. Twitter is just twitter.com/Susan Calloway. Instagram, same thing. I'm a little bit less. I mean, I'm starting to get more active on Instagram. It's just less useful sometimes for music. It's more visual. So I've been trying to do better with that though. So I do have an Instagram, also YouTube. I've got a big YouTube thing and I'm going to be doing a lot more with videos this year. So definitely follow me on YouTube. I'm on Spotify as well. Susan Calloway, just Spotify, Susan Calloway. It's just my name everywhere. So I'm pretty much everywhere. Haven't really dived into TikTok yet. I'm working on that, but we'll see.
I don't understand it. I'm going to be honest. I sound really old right now, but I don't understand it at all.
Well, it's so much stuff to maintain, as an artist. You're just like, really? Do I have to just so much stuff to always be posting? So, and I try to pay attention to where the fans are. Oh, also I should say Twitch and Discord too. I have a Twitch channel and I'm going to be doing a lot more with that this year. I have a Discord server. In fact, my fan club has their own even Discord area, which is another fun option from being in the fan club. In addition to the WhatsApp community. Which is like a texting, community for fans. But I do have that as well. So I'll certainly supply Josh with all the fun links so it makes it easy for you guys.
And there are going to be plenty of links in that description down below.
Awesome. I really appreciate that. And listen, I appreciate you guys listening to the music. All my music is everywhere. It's on iTunes, Amazon, all the sites, all the things. So my music's pretty easy to find. Usually we try to do some kind of little video. I haven't done a ton of music videos, but I'm gonna be doing more of those. I do have a couple lyric videos up there, which are kind of fun. So you can check those out and more to come. So.
Oh, wow. Susan, it has been a genuine honor and privilege to have you on the show, honestly.
My pleasure too. It was great hanging out.
Time.
Me too, Josh. It was great.
And thank you everyone for watching. If you do follow Susan on any of the socials or you are interested in any of Susan's stuff, please do let us know down in the comments below. And big love to everyone who's watching and we will see you next time. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Robot Republic. See you next time, guys.
Yes.
Bye, Susan.
Bye. Bye.